On June 21st of 2018, the 2018 NBA Draft was a night that changed the future of the league. The Atlanta Hawks selected Luka Doncic with the 3rd overall pick, while the Dallas Mavericks took Trae Young with the 5th pick. But just minutes later, the two franchises made a decision that would alter the course of NBA history forever. The Atlanta Hawks traded Luka Doncic to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Trae Young and a future first-round pick. This was a gamble, a bet that Trae Young would be the better fit for Atlanta's future. But what if that trade never happened? What if Luka stayed with the Hawks and Trae became the face of the Mavericks? Would their careers have been better or worse? Would either team have won a championship by now? In this video, we're diving deep into this alternate timeline, analyzing how each player would have developed in their original team's system, how their franchises would have built around them, and ultimately how the entire NBA landscape would have been different. Make sure to watch until the end because this is one of the biggest what-if scenarios in recent NBA history. The 2018 NBA Draft, the trade that changed everything. On June 21st of 2018, the Atlanta Hawks, holding the 3rd overall pick, select Luka Doncic, an international sensation.
With the 3rd pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Luka Doncic from Ljubljana, Slovenia, and Real Madrid,
who had just dominated in the EuroLeague, winning MVP at just 19 years old. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks, picking at number 5, choose Trae Young, an electrifying shooter out of Oklahoma.
With the 5th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Trae Young from the University of Oklahoma,
who led the NCAA in both points and assists. But as we all know, neither of them would end up playing for the team that drafted them.
We have an early trade to announce. The Atlanta Hawks trade the draft rights to Luka Doncic, the 3rd pick, to the Dallas Mavericks for the draft rights to Trae Young, the 5th pick, and a future first-round pick.
Just moments later, a deal was finalized. Luka Doncic was sent to the Mavericks, while the Hawks received Trae Young and a future first-round pick. At the time, many questioned the move. Was Atlanta making a mistake by passing up on Luka's size, versatility, and playmaking? Or would Trae Young's flashy scoring and elite passing prove to be the perfect foundation for the Hawks' rebuild? But why did the trade happen? To understand why this trade even took place, we have to look at the mindset of both front offices. The Mavericks saw Luka as a generational talent, someone who could immediately take over the franchise from Dirk Nowitzki, and they wanted him from the start. Atlanta, on the other hand, wanted a player who would fit their vision of a fast-paced, three-point heavy offense. They believed Trae Young could be their better version of Stephen Curry, a dynamic shooter who could stretch defenses and ignite their offense. But what if Atlanta had kept Luka? And what if Trae Young had stayed in Dallas? If Luka Doncic had never been traded, he would have joined an Atlanta Hawks team that looked very different from the Mavericks. Instead of playing alongside Kristaps Porzingis or even later Kyrie Irving, he would have been surrounded by John Collins, Kevin Huerter, and eventually Clint Capella. One of the biggest questions would be, how would the Hawks have developed Luka? In Dallas, he was immediately given the keys to the franchise, running the offense from day one. But in Atlanta, would he have been allowed to dominate the ball the same way? One potential issue would have been coaching. The Hawks were led by Lloyd Pierce, a coach who struggled to connect with young players and was eventually fired in 2021. Would he have maximized Luka's talents, or would Atlanta's instability have slowed Luka's rise? Would Luka still become a superstar? Even in this alternate timeline, it's safe to assume that Luka Doncic would still be one of the league's brightest stars. His size, skill, and basketball IQ are undeniable, but would he have found the same immediate success in Atlanta? That's where things get interesting. In Dallas, Luka became a triple-double machine, leading the team in scoring, assists, and rebounds early on. But would the Hawks have built a system around him that allowed him to flourish in the same way? By his 2nd or 3rd season, the Hawks likely would have realized they had a superstar on their hands. They may have still traded for Clint Capella, but would they have been able to pair Luka with another all-star? Now, let's look at the other side. What if Trae Young had stayed with the Mavericks? His rookie year would have been Dirk Nowitzki's farewell season. Unlike Luka, who had the size to be a dominant playmaker, Trae would have been a different kind of leader, more reliant on pick and rolls and his deep shooting ability. Rick Carlisle, the Mavericks head coach at the time, is known for his structured system and emphasis on defense. Would Trae Young, a player who struggles on defense, have clashed with Carlisle early on? Would Trae have led the Mavericks to playoff success? The biggest question mark would be how Dallas built around Trae. Luka's size allows him to play multiple positions, but Trae would have required more defensive support. Would the Mavericks still have pursued Kristaps Porzingis, or would they have gone in a completely different direction? One of the biggest concerns is how Trae would have fared in a tougher Western Conference. Unlike the East, where Trae has thrived against weaker backcourts, he would have been constantly facing off against Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, and other elite point guards. It's possible that Trae Young would still be an all-star in this timeline, but would he have the same level of success that Luka has had? This is how the NBA will look different. This trade didn't just affect Luka and Trae, it changed the entire league. If Luka had stayed in the East, would the conference's power structure look different today? Would the Hawks have been a legitimate threat to the Bucks and Celtics sooner? Meanwhile, in the West, would the Mavericks have struggled to build a contender around Trae? And would the Warriors, Lakers, and Nuggets have dominated even more? So, what's the final verdict? If Luka had stayed with the Hawks, they may have been title contenders earlier, but coaching and front office decisions could have slowed their rise. Although, if Trae had stayed with the Mavericks, he may not have reached the same level of success, struggling in a conference loaded with elite guards. One thing is for sure, this was one of the most impactful trades in modern NBA history, and if it had never happened, the entire league would look different today. What do you think? Would Luka have won a championship in Atlanta? Would Trae have struggled in Dallas? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more NBA content just like this one. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.